Hello, welcome to another episode of Showboys. My name is Mike, and I'm joined, as always, with my panel of friends here and fellow hosts of the show. But we're in all discombobulated order here. So, yeah, we got Dad joining us tonight. How are you tonight, sir?
I am great. How are you?
Yeah, sitting up. What's it feel like riding shotgun on the
Oh.
screen setup here?
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
I don't like
Yeah.
it. It's
Chad's
weird.
here. Chad, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm great. I'm ready.
Yeah. New no bandana tonight.
Oh,
No,
he
no.
means
Going
business.
all natural.
Yeah.
You think the bandana would mean business?
You would
not the other
think.
way around.
I was just trying to
Maybe
help
it is
out.
the other way around though.
Maybe,
because
yeah,
I
I don't
always
know.
wear the bandana.
No,
that when I
it's
get
the
serious, it's like
equivalent.
taking the
It's
coat
like
off.
you take it off.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
throw it.
It's like when you tell your friend to hold your watch before you get in the fight. You know.
Yeah.
You're like, here, we're gonna take the bandana off
It's like
tonight.
Piccolo when he throws off his training gear.
Yeah. Oh, and that's Nick down there. How you doing tonight, sir?
Howdy. Peace up. A-Town down.
Nick just turned into an anime girl and just like peace sign. And Biosib's with us tonight, and he has the runs, so that's fun. Hope you get doing better there, buddy. And Joe's been here for what, 7 minutes already. He was hanging out before we went live. He got here early, already finished his popcorn, so he's got to warm up some more. But here we are, the championship episode of the March Madness streaming service original series tournament that is taking place tonight. It's kind of crazy that we've done. I mean, I guess it's not that crazy because we've done like themed months before, but like this was quite an undertaking. 5 episodes.
Yeah, this was an event, bro. Love it.
Lot of stuff
It's good.
going on behind the scenes. Lot of hours and thinking power and all that stuff went into this, and it's coming to an end tonight. Like, how do you guys feel about that? Like, are you excited? Are you like, is it bittersweet? Like, hey, where are you guys sitting?
I mean, I'm ready because I got like 9 games that I've played in the process of this tournament that I would love to talk about. It's
Nice. How many of those were replays?
Yeah, Ghost of
Wow.
Tsushima 8 times.
Nah, none. Actually found a new samurai
That's
game
awesome.
in there too. So
Nice. What's playing next week, right?
yeah, I hope so.
Joe says, if I learned one thing throughout all of this, only murders in the building is straight fire.
It's a good one.
There you go. Hey, that's what, that's like a side goal of this whole thing, is hopefully to get some new shows in front of you guys, and maybe add some stuff to your watch lists and backlogs and whatnot. But yeah, what about you, Nick? How you feeling now that we're at the end?
Definitely ready for it to be over. This is exhausting. But yeah, I'm kind of, it was definitely fun. The one with Chad though, I'm kind of ready to get back to some other topics. But I think it was a very good first application of this idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can refine it a little bit, expand it.
So it's a good learning experience, because of course this is the first time we've tried anything like this. So there were some, speed bumps along the way, but nothing that can't be ironed out. Civ
Yeah,
says,
like
I
round
hated
3 speed bump.
Civ said, I hated only murders. My ex and I only got 4 episodes in before we shut that down. Well, there you go.
That's what they call it these days.
And Joe coming in with the straight salt truck running over us. He said, maybe next March the host will watch some of the shows. Hey, you try watching 64 shows, sir.
Yeah.
To be fair, the shows that we watched, I mean, there were only shows that you really needed to watch in this. Like, Fleabag wasn't going to make it to the finals. Let's be honest.
I'd say out of all 64,
we saw a good
I would
portion
say
of
less
them.
than 5 had not been seen by anyone.
That was a thing in
one of
the
us.
first round, and Joe's had to make that comment every week.
Yep.
Never gonna let it die.
But yeah, Dad, how do you feel having spent an entire month not behind the scenes on Thursday nights, being a part of the panel and talking and all that stuff? Like, how are you feeling?
I feel exhausted.
Yeah. Did you have fun though?
I did. It was a lot of fun. I'm just not a big talker, so like I don't know if you know this about me.
It could be slightly problematic
Yeah,
when you're on a podcast.
Right. So I keep it short and to the point and then let you guys do the rest.
There you go.
You know, I did not realize or appreciate how large the trophy was. 'Cause at first I was like, is that a graphic? I was like, what is next? Is that a watch? And I'm like, holy crap, that's the thing I thought was like a size of a quarter.
Yeah, you want to?
Me too. Yeah.
I mean,
You want to show this off?
It is tiny.
It's not as tiny as I thought it was by any stretch of the imagination.
We have a trophy for the champion of the first ever Showboys March Madness tournament. Jeff constructed it by hand. He went out and found a nice rock in his yard, and he spent all week chiseling it away. And that's what we got. And it's
I sure did. Yeah. It's totally right.
Yeah. It's great with stonework, that guy. Yeah, no, it's been real fun. I'm both relieved that that we have come to the end, because it like Nick said, it has been quite exhausting. But in a lot of fun ways. Like it was really fun to put this together. It was really fun to go through each round. And tonight's gonna be really fun as we finally settle on the winner. We have another debate in line for you guys today. Just like last week, we are going to be watching Nick and Chad go head to head, and we'll just go over the rules here again in case you, for some reason, are listening to this and didn't watch the semifinals or whatever. But Nick and Chad will be going head to head in a 3-round debate here. They will each get 1 5-minute round, state their case for their show. And they can use any or all of the criteria that we've been using throughout the entire tournament. They will then get 1 2-minute round for rebuttal or attack mode of the other host show. And then they will get 1 final 1-minute round for their closing argument. Between each round, the judge panel, which is just Jeff and I tonight, we will, be able to ask any questions to help, get some more information, help us decide the winners. And the criteria used is, of course, the same we've been using all tournament. We got the story, the characters, the aesthetic, the world building, cultural impact, and then, of course, a bonus category of music or sound design, all that good stuff. Yeah, are you guys ready to get into it?
Yeah, man.
I'm ready to see this.
Hey, we got to. What's that, Nick? What is that?
It's a brand new OLED Switch that we're trying to give away. So, have everyone subscribe to the Showboys podcast. Yes. You might be a lucky winner of the Swatch.
The Swatch? Yes, that would be amazing. Go subscribe so we could hit 1,000 subscribers. Give that thing away. So yeah, the final matchup. Here we have it. We have I'm gonna switch you guys around because it's just weird having you not on your show's side. So we have Chernobyl, the #1 seed from Division Nick, HBO Max original series, facing off against Chad's division finalist, House of the Dragon, also from HBO Max. So basically, the determination in Discord, at least, was HBO Max is the real winner here.
Yes.
Who would have thought? So me. Yeah, so let's get, well, I guess before we get into it, Nick, we erroneously disregarded the polls last week.
Yes, we did.
Do you just want to go, not that they matter anymore because those matches have been decided, but do you want to let's go over the poll results from last week?
Yeah, so House of the Dragon got 70% of the votes against Stranger Things. So there was that was in line, I think, with how it turned out for us. Yep. And then Arcane got 70% of the votes against Chernobyl. So Chernobyl was a little bit of an upset when it comes to the polls last week. So pushing through, that show just keeps fighting along.
We'll see if it continues that push through tonight.
I don't know if I just made a really good argument for it or you just made a really bad argument for Arcane. I don't know which it was.
Probably a good combination of both. Yeah, upon review, like, yeah, I really leaned into the League fan side of why Arcane was amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking to nobody who plays League of Legends.
That's why if you go back and listen to the questions I asked you, I virtually asked you the same 3 questions in varying ways 3 times in a row, trying to get you to give me an answer that would enlighten me a little bit. So
yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, that was big sad. I was like, no, don't do it, Mike. Don't.
I couldn't help it. But yeah, without further ado, let's get at it tonight. Of course, we don't have our third guest judge tonight. So if there is a tie between Jeff and I and our decision, we do have the YouTube poll right now. So it's not too late. Head over to our YouTube channel, go on the community tab and cast your vote now. We will use that as our tiebreaker. And of course, we love hearing the comments come through.
Do we though?
I mean, sometimes we do. Let's get into it. Who wants to go first?
Nick does.
I thought Chad does, because then.
Should we flip a coin?
We should. Jeff.
Yeah,
let's actually flip a
heads,
coin this
Nick,
time.
Nick goes, tails, Nick goes. Let's go. See what you got there.
All right, you ready?
Heads is Nick, tails is Chad.
Oh, crap, it
Okay.
fell on the floor.
Oh, man. Go get it.
All right, this is gonna be great. Tails, Nick, you go second. All right. Oh, I gotta get my timer.
Yeah, get your timer.
Hold your horses. All right.
Can we just play like a recap of like our
It's basically
openers for our
it's
last?
basically.
Well,
I
I think you guys both last week. I think you guys both honed in on 1 or 2 of the 6 potential categories that you could talk about. So there are some other things. But Chad, your 5 minutes. Are you ready, sir?
Yes.
Okay, they begin right now.
All right. So here we are, House of the Dragon. Again, I feel like I've talked about this show a lot over the course of this tournament. But I want to focus on the characters, because I think this is where it stands out the most from Chernobyl. So I'm just going to go through some of the standout characters in the series. I want to start with the Targaryen brothers, Daemon and Viserys. They are, from the jump, really kind of the highlight of the show. And it kind of carries through the entire first season. Through the time jumps, their actors don't change. So there's not a lot of change as far as their aesthetics per se. Daemon gets a haircut at some point throughout the series. He looks a little different after the time jump, I think. So he found a barber in the time jump. But it's just cool to see these two brothers, because they're almost entirely at odds through the entirety of the first season. But there are snippets here and there where you can tell that they're very loving towards each other, even though they have kind of 2 totally different views on which way the Targaryen family should be going in this portion of the story. Viserys wants that peacetime to keep on rolling, and Daemon wants the conquering, let's burn shit to the ground to come back. And that's a huge play throughout the entirety of the first season for both of them. But I do have to mention the performances from Patty and Matt are freaking phenomenal all through the entire first season on both of these characters, especially Viserys, who goes through quite a radical change as far as a character, whittling away to nothing by the end of the first season. And then the other one I want to focus on is Alicent and Rhaenyra, who's kind of the highlight of the show, obviously. The whole childhood friends become bitter enemies. If you went to high school, that for whatever reason women can just not stay friends for very long. It's just the way it is. They're best friends one week and they hate each other the next week. And you see that obviously probably happened back in medieval times too. So I think Rhaenyra is a huge standout in the first half of the season. Young Rhaenyra, who's on the poster here, she is performed brilliantly through that entirety of the first season. But I think Alicent stands out when the actress change happens. She just becomes the villain, I guess is the best way to put it. total character change on her too. In the first half of the season, she's really just a pawn for her mom or for her dad to move around the chessboard, and she does pretty much whatever he says. And you can see it's really messing with her mental state. She's picking her nails and stuff, and all that stuff is gone by the time she's grown up and in the later half of the season. So little details like that, I think, are just really cool. And then one that we really haven't talked about is Rhaenys and the Sea Snake. And I love Rhaenys because she's kind of like the older Rhaenyra. She was supposed to become queen. It didn't end up happening. The cold open to the show kind of shows you what happened there. Where's my time at?
2 minutes.
The cold open to the show kind of shows you what happens there, where they set up a council to elect the new king, and it's showing you that they did this back then to prevent a war, and it's something that Viserys does not follow through when he makes his decision, and that's obviously a major point of why it's starting to crumble into a war. But I think she's a great character. I love her scenes with Rhaenyra, where she's basically like, here, women are never going to sit on that throne. You're just going to have to get over it. That's just the way it is. But Corlys, man, Corlys is so cool, man. I wish we got more of him. He's just that badass, hardened naval commander. He's just got a cool house, his little freaking room that he has with all his treasures from all his adventures. I'd love to see a spin-off series just dedicated to him, because I think he's great. But I think it's what House of the Dragon does better than Chernobyl is, and it's kind of a detriment to Chernobyl because I don't know that they even do this, but it kind of gives the characters priority instead of building the story and having crappy characters. And we got this awesome, cool war with a lot of actions. It's not that. They're focusing primarily on the characters, and you get a lot of depth throughout the entirety of the first season on those characters. So just that decision to take action out and put more character depth in, at least in this first season, I think is going to pay off a hell of a lot in the later seasons when the war actually does come. And now we're kind of devoted to these characters, and we've grown to love them. So I'll leave it there for now.
Perfect. 20 seconds to spare. Look at you go. Perfect. Nick, are you ready, sir?
Oh, you guys don't have questions for him? Isn't that how it works?
No, we'll save our questions till
okay.
till both of
You'll
you
question us both simultaneously.
Is that what we did last time, or
No.
did we question
I
the
think we
person right
questioned-
after?
Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, we'll question him. We'll try to replicate what we did last week, of course. Dad, do you have any questions off the top of your head there? Let's really grill him.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Man, really under the pressure over here.
So, in regards to these two shows, because I think they are kind of different in the fact that House of the Dragon, like you said, it's very character focused, and the story plays out around the characters, whereas Chernobyl is more story focused with having characters, because story has characters. If you could you maybe give a few points or talk a little bit about what would make the story aspect of House of the Dragon compare, or in your opinion overtake Chernobyl?
Yeah, I definitely can. And it, unfortunately, it's going to really tie back to the characters as well, because I think the characters are the basis of any good story. I think everyone would probably agree with that. If you got crappy characters, you're probably not going to get a good story. There are a few exceptions where there's crappy acted characters and still a good story. But I think there's just, it's hard to compare the two because they're so radically different as far as what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, yeah, it's just the way that the characters are presented that kind of engross you into the story. And it also has I don't want to call it nostalgia from Game of Thrones going for it, but there's a lot of cool story stuff in there that maybe wouldn't land for somebody that didn't watch the original series. Like the little stuff like we were talking about, seeing the city and how different it is around King's Landing and all that stuff. That stuff might not land if that didn't happen, but I think it's just the characters is what really is driving the story through the entirety. So you can't talk about the story on House of the Dragon without talking about the characters, if that answers your question.
All right, all right. We got a question from Joe that isn't a troll question, so we will ask it. If you are not familiar with Game of Thrones, do you think that House of the Dragon is a good standalone series?
Yes, I do. And I actually think that it might be a good jumping in point for somebody that's new to this universe, because it's much more condensed. We're telling a much more condensed, narrow story here. Not to say it's not uncomplicated. Game of Thrones is very complicated, but so is House of the Dragon. There's a lot going on, but it's more narrow. And also the good thing about House of the Dragon is that the book that it's based off of is finished. So we know where the ending is going to be, and we're not going to fumble on the way there, presumably. So I do think that the show would be great for someone unfamiliar with it. I would say it might even be better to jump in than starting with Game of Thrones.
Interesting.
It kind of has kind of like a Rogue One effect with like the original trilogy on Star Wars. Like I would totally tell someone to go watch Rogue One first and then watch the original trilogy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It definitely better eases people into, because people do get thrown off with the vintageness of the original trilogy at this point in time, like just like the helmets and the costumes, and it's a little too dated, just a little bit. And Rogue One does a good job, like being familiar but also being fresh.
Yeah, and I almost, to be honest with you, I almost think that I wish that I could just erase my mind and watch it in that order, because I think that House of the Dragon adds a lot of context to Daenerys in the original series, because you're seeing where her family was at one point at the height of their power, dozens of dragons. And then at the beginning of that series, nothing. There's like 2 of them left and they have nothing. They're like on the run. So yeah, I think it's anybody that I'm going to recommend jump into the Game of Thrones universe, I'm probably going to say start with House of the Dragon before you watch the original series.
Nice. So an update from Jordan, by the way. I just got a text. He's feeling a little under the weather tonight, therefore he could not join us. But he said, you guys have fun. Remember, go for the jugular. So just some advice for our contestants tonight. Fangs out, I think is what he's going with there.
Can you do that again?
Fangs out.
Okay.
Dad, any questions pop up in this short
So,
time period here?
I don't want to keep bringing up Game of Thrones, but how do you feel like the characters in House of the Dragon did compared to Game of Thrones?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that there are a lot of parallels to characters from Game of Thrones, but I think there are a lot of standouts. There's a lot of mixtures of characters, like Otto is a little bit of Tywin, a little bit of Littlefinger. There's a lot going on as far as the characters. I think that House of the Dragon does it really, really good as far as the characters, because it's just one season, and we have to remember that we're looking at 8 seasons versus 1. And there's just an incredible amount of depth that they've built to all these characters. So I like what they're doing here. It's not to say that they magically did this over at HBO. There's a book based off it. Right. How in depth that book is, we don't know, because it's like a history book. So it's not going to have a lot of these scenes in it. So they probably did come with some creative clause to dig through the book. But yeah, I think it's, if you look at season 1 of Game of Thrones versus this, I mean, there's no competition, not even close. Now, granted, it is 2022 versus, whatever year the first season of Game of Thrones came out. So there's that too.
2012.
2012. Yeah, that might be right. So,
oh, dang.
Yeah, I think it does the characters as good, if not better, than the original series.
Nice.
All right. Well, Nick, are you prepared?
I think so.
All right. Well, your 5 minutes will begin right now.
Yeah. So, Chernobyl, kind of like outlined last week. It sets off to tell a very concise story, very specific story. But what it does is it kind of pulls off every step it takes, almost flawlessly. It scores high in like every single thing it does. And the characters in the show, like while the main character is arguably the event itself, they do they have such a stylistic approach in terms of the characters that they choose to tell the story through is what is most compelling, because while we are not getting the most depth or breadth on the individual characters in the story, we get their take on this crazy event as these firsthand accounts of it, as best we can create firsthand accounts of the event. And the team that worked on the show did as much research as they could, from like testimonials, actual written evidence of the event, and they put a lot into it to get those right, make them feel right. And they do all that also while bending a period piece history documentary drama and throwing this creative like alt horror element over it, because it's very much scary. And it's not where like a horror movie where you get a break from the tension. It's an ever looming tension that they're able to somehow maintain through each episode, right? They just continuously build it, which is really wild. And the first episode starts with the event, so it already happened, yet they carry that tension all the way through. So kind of like House of the Dragon, their source material, right? How little there is in terms of actual context of like written dialogue, they're able to really expose, right, this in a very, very good series. And we also have some characters that go through crazy character arcs, actually disintegrating into throughout the episode, like Viserys. He basically had the same
right
thing. So like to the characters though, like obviously Jared Harris is fantastic, but also another let me see, Stellan Skarsgård, he's in like a ton of things too. And the show also has that HBO effect where like they pick these not like B actors, but they're just like these background actors that you see in everything, and like really put them on the pedestal and like let them shine as like actors, which I always think is fantastic that HBO is able to do that. And just it does it so well. Where am I at time wise?
2 minutes, actually.
Cool.
1:55 to be
Man,
exact.
we always ask right at the 2 minute
I know,
mark.
right?
Yeah,
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I feel like
2 minute-
every debate it's done that.
2 minute
Um,
warning. It tells us that we need 3 minutes next time.
Yeah.
Right.
And one thing that always struck me about it was it encourages you at the same time to also maybe look stuff up and even question me, like, is that accurate? Like, how like close is that? Because they get so close in the show while making it seem so photorealistic, because visually it's stunning, right? And while you're going through it, you're like, wait a second, are they exaggerating here, or are they like being realistic? And I was looking stuff up and like just learning as much as I can, be like, oh wow, like they nailed that. So the realism, but also while maintaining a very gripping drama.
60 seconds.
Appreciate that out of a show, because sometimes people get too real and too much into the documentary side without having it be a good drama. In this, it just hits everything like perfectly across the board. And to its presence, to its benefit though, it stays very concise in its how long the episodes are and what they set out to do. They didn't stretch it too far. They didn't make it too thin. And the benefit it has over House of the Dragon is that House of the Dragon, one hard part is it's hard to get into if you can't keep up with the characters and everything that's going on with the time jumps and the layeredness of the characters.
10
It might
seconds.
be too much. Whereas this, it gives you exactly what you need to bite off of and nothing more.
Wow, almost like you and your use of time. Finished with 5 seconds left.
And I made a dragon pun at the end.
Bonus points. No, I'm just kidding. So, Dad, any questions for Nick? Chat, any questions? Get those questions in if you have any, and we'll ask.
So even with the characters not being like a main focal point of the show, do you feel like it's a good show could be achieved by story alone? Like with, story supported by characters rather than characters supported with story.
Well, are you asking me if you can do a show without characters in it?
No.
So I think that's what it kind of sets out to do, because it doesn't inundate you with like too much made up character drama, right? It's all this interpersonal drama that these characters have with the event, the main part of the story. So maybe this show kind of sets out and does that, because they don't make up any fluff, right, to make these individual characters intriguing to the audience. Like, oh, I really am interested. They do a little bit with Jared Harris, but like it's all through the lens of the event and how it's impacted these people. So there's no like extra fat on this show when it comes to characters outweighing the story. Like everything's just so tightly built into the story they're telling. Without needing to have like these excellently like written characters like outside of that main event, if that makes sense. I think that made as much sense as your question did to me.
Oh, it's so savage.
Minus 5 points for you.
I was gonna say, remember that when you vote later.
Yeah. Gotta be nice to teacher.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Do you feel like it was a better choice for them to like not put so much focus on the characters, like to make them more relatable, or like to make them seem more like normal people rather than the extra fluff in like really diving into these characters? Do you think it just made it easier? Didn't really have to think too much about it? You could just get lost in the story.
Right. Yeah. So I think that was a good decision of them, because if they were to do that, it would turn into like maybe a 10 episode like season instead of like a mini series. And I think that was important to keep it like very dialed in a mini, series fashion. Because I think they're also smart in knowing that we can't really stretch this out too far, because we only have so much we can actually bake in here before people are like, well, am I even watching a show about Chernobyl anymore? Like, it's just kind of like Jared Harris and like his family troubles all of a sudden. But the cool thing that it does do that kind of, I think, makes up for that kind of more, character personal development is they do take the time that each character that you follow throughout the series, each one, the main ones, they have like a pivotal moment in each episode throughout the series that they played in the story. So like you had the like engineers, whatever you want to call them, that are like in the reactor and like dealing with that whole situation, versus the firefighters and like their pivotal moments dealing with it happening, to even more of the like geopolitical stuff and like the impacts of that stuff, and then like Jared Harris like more investigative part in it. So like they put impact on the story that these characters have and how they influence the event as it unfolded.
Very good. Very good. Joe coming in with another good question. So we'll throw that up there. If you look at all the awards that Chernobyl had won in multiple different categories, do you think that this show is more successful than House of the Dragon?
If you look at all the awards that Chernobyl won, a lot, multiple new characters, do you think that this show was more successful than House of the Dragon? I would say at face value for what we have out of these two shows now, yes. But not to say that House of Dragon isn't going to steamroll it once it, hits its third season or even its second season. But I would say season for season, Chernobyl kind of like on paper was more successful. Even at the time, like surprisingly, right? Like tons of people were talking about it. Like a lot of people watch this show, and it is kind of a random one-off. Be like, that's the show that kind of like took rise, right? Like these kind of like pop culture pop-off shows, and it definitely had that effect too. It wasn't like one that kind of like had a slow burn. Like it had a very quick burn, and just like came out of nowhere, won all these awards. People, it was well received. Everyone watched it. Everyone liked it. Whereas like House of the Dragon, it's gonna have to get to that point, but that's also the style of that show. So like that's kind of hard to weight them, at least because we know House of the Dragon has a good run ahead of it.
Nice. Civ says, "Oh man, Chernobyl isn't a zombie show."
It could have been,
Not yet,
right?
Yeah.
Not yet.
There is a horror movie where they go to Chernobyl, and I think they're zombies.
Yeah, and
And-
some games that
Yeah.
didn't come out ever or weren't good.
Yeah, I don't know if
They
never
looked-
made it out of the Ukraine. I don't think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Stivs also says, "Come on though, Everything Everywhere All at Once got so many awards, but I think it was garbage."
But we're talking about Chernobyl.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And Joe says also, I guess we're comparing a limited series to an actual series. Yeah, that's kind of where the difficulty of these kind of comes into play, because Chernobyl, 5 episodes done, like, and House of Dragon is still growing, like it's in its infantile stage as a series, right?
I mean,
But
that's why I think it's fair to say Chernobyl was more successful, right, at
Yeah.
that face value. But I
Well,
don't.
I mean, we
believe
can
that.
only judge by what's available, right?
Right.
We only have one season of each. But like you said, I think time will tell. I mean, House of
yeah.
Dragons got life, so. So I would like to ask, since again, I guess I'll stick in the story category, right? I liked your point about how the tension was able to hold throughout, each episode, with the massive event of Chernobyl happening in the very first episode. So can you maybe elaborate on how they were able to do that, and like what you appreciated in how they executed that, holding that tension after the big event happened?
Yeah. So obviously there's a little bit of buildup, right? And then it does happen, because I think by the end of that first episode, we have the firefighters at night, like entering the hell, essentially, the hellscape that situation was. So I think what one cool way that they approached that was how do I want to phrase this? They kind of make it seem like the worst of it has passed consistently,
Mhm.
when we know as viewers, even if you know very little about it, you're like, that isn't it. Like, it's going to get worse, right? So, like, they kind of end. I can't exactly remember, like, if it's like ending the episodes, but they get to those points where it's like, okay, that's the worst of it. Like, it couldn't possibly be any worse. But then, like, it keeps going, and then there's somehow it gets worse after, like, the falling, melting graphite hitting firefighters. Like, somehow it gets worse after that. Even because then they get to the points where it's like you get angry at the situation because there's people making stupid decisions that allowed it to get worse or to get to the point it did.
Nice. Thank you, sir. Any more questions before we move on to the round of rebuttals? Take that as a resounding no. All right. So, Chad, on to you. You got 2 minutes to continue to state your case or take Jordan's advice and go for Nick's jugular here. Are you ready, sir?
I am. Yeah.
All right. Your 2 minutes starts right now.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the exact parallel that I was talking about. We have one show that is about an event, not so much the characters, and one that's about characters and an event, but mostly the characters. I do want to touch on your more successful thing. If you look at the viewership versus these two shows, is not even close. Chernobyl's like in the 1 million range per episode. House of the Dragon's around 10 million per episode. So I don't know that I can say that it's more successful. Sure, did it win more awards? Probably. But like George or like whoever Bio said, I mean, there are movies that win awards all the time that are awful. So those are pretty meaningless. But I do want to touch a little bit on the cultural impact of House of the Dragon, because I think it's a very important show to bring back the love for this universe and how much it waned after the original series. And I think it did a phenomenal job of getting people back into this world. And I think it will continue to do so. And it's also continuing the route that a lot of us have been into high fantasy stuff. I know Nick doesn't say this is high fantasy. It's got dragons and magic. So in my mind, it kind of is. But we've been into that stuff probably since we were kids with game like, Final Fantasy, whatever you're playing that was high fantasy. It's bringing high fantasy to people that would never watch Lord of the Rings, that would never watch anything else. That's what House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones has done. And you can see it by the viewership. There's not that many high fantasy fans out there that are going to be climbing all over this. So I think that is a huge, huge thing for this series, that it kind of rose from the ashes of Game of Thrones and brought a lot of people back that said they would never watch anything in this again, but it was just so alluring when that first episode dropped to get on HBO and watch
Time
it.
is up, sir. I forgot we had a timer, and I got scared by my phone. I just pulled a Joe. By the way, watch Joe's streams because he gets scared very easily. Actually, his wife scared the crap out of him yesterday morning. It was hysterical. All right, great. So I like your point on the cultural impact. The viewership numbers obviously very high. 10 million episodes, great. I mean, wasn't the app like breaking pretty much like on the premiere?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah, shut down HBO Max, which is crazy. But to your point of drawing in new fans, I mean, I'd be interested to know, not Rings of Power, because we all agree that show is aggressively mediocre, but the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the movies themselves, the viewership of those movies, that I would only push back a little bit because I remember those when those were out, those were like massive. But like we talk about the dumpster fire that is the end of Game of Thrones, at least in the public opinion. Can you kind of go into how you think this series has maybe rectified that a little bit, or how they were able to still draw people in after such a like public outcry and like loss of love, I guess you could say, for the Game of Thrones franchise?
Yeah, I think it's on the way to rectifying it. You have to remember how popular Game of Thrones was. And even though a lot of people were mad about the ending, that show was incredibly popular while it was running, incredibly popular. So the ending sure made a lot of people mad, but even though they said they were never going to watch anything from George R.R. Martin again, or whatever they said, or HBO, whatever they were saying, that wasn't probably really never going to happen, especially when there's a whole new series that's splintered off entirely really from the original series 200 years before the events of that show. I think that it's bringing people back into a more tightly woven story that's not all over the map with all these different characters, all these different storylines going on. It's more condensed. It's more digestible. Everybody's motive, all the characters' motives are easily digested throughout the series. So I think it's, like I said earlier, I think it's an easier jumping in point for newcomers. I also think that old fans that are still kind of sunburnt from the ending of season 8, I think it's an easy way for them to get back into this world. Did that answer your question? I have no idea. Maybe.
Yeah. You got anything, Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Or chat? Submit those questions, chat.
Okay, so it's called what's season 2 called? It's called The Dance of Dragons. Is that what it's called?
So I think the
or
book, yeah, the book is called A Dance of Dragons, or no, the book is Fire and Blood. The war is A Dance of Dragons or Dance of Dragons or something like that.
So that's basically like they're kind of preparing for war, right? Do you feel like in that story, these characters that have been developed along the way will be lost in that story?
No, I don't. I think I think the reason that it's not going to get lost in that story is because it is, like I said, a more tightly woven group of characters. It's not the dozens upon dozens that we had in Game of Thrones. There's maybe 20 of them in total, counting all the children and stuff. So there's a lot less characters. There's only 2 sides going on here so far, and I think they're doing a good job of showing, like I said, everyone's motivations and everything. So I think the characters there's no way they could get lost because they are so crucial to the story moving forward. The war is based on them. They started the war. Everything that's going to move from this point forward is going to be around those characters with the war in the background, is how I imagine the rest of the seasons are going to pan out, with the way that the first season panned out, where we took kind of a backseat to the action, got us into these characters. Were we going to pump up the action? Probably, but I don't think the characters will get lost. No.
Okay. Cool.
Perfect. We have no questions from chat, so let's move on to Sir Nick. Are you ready for your 2 minutes of rebuttal?
Sure.
Your timer begins right now.
Yeah, so the viewership thing. If we were to squeeze that in as a criteria that it isn't, it would maybe go into cultural impact, but unfortunately, we're not rating things here by viewership. But it definitely won awards in every other category, however you want to phrase that: story, characters, aesthetic. So there's that, but also you could probably do some quick math to ratio them appropriately and say, percentage wise, bar for bar, probably it might be, if you actually break down the numbers, I can't do it live right now, but I'm going to do it afterwards. Chernobyl might have statistically more viewership for its compressed 5 episodes to an otherwise 8-10 episode season of something. So that's all very skewed. You can't just go raw numbers when you break that stuff down. But that's not even a criteria. So that's viewership. And that's why we have awards, is to
50 seconds
stack rank things against actual categories that we have here. So that's one thing. But I will say the cultural impact of Chernobyl, bringing a lot of that soothingness from a lot of burnt people on the end of Game of Thrones, is definitely like a big hit for it. But also there was all those people coming back from Game of Thrones to get that ease back in their life. Be like, can they fix it for me? Yes, they can. Thank goodness. So it has that going for it. The entire Game of Thrones fan base.
15 seconds.
I'm good.
You're good. We have some numbers popping in chat here. So Joe says House of the Dragon episode 1 had 2.17 million US viewers for the first episode and 1.85 million for the finale.
Yeah, you're not looking at the HBO and HBO Max numbers on that.
Joe then says Chernobyl has
That's the other hard thing.
0.75 million for the first episode and 1.089 for the finale. Interesting. And Civ says PJ Salt Chad. So take that as you want, guys. All right. Questions. Dad, do you have any for Nick? Chat, if you have questions for Nick, get those in there now.
Every time you do that, I think you're saying Chad.
Me too.
I-
I'm like,
yeah,
why does he
I-
need to
asking
ask me
questions?
questions?
Chad, ask Nick some questions. No, I'm just kidding.
Come back to me.
All right.
Yeah, why do you always start
Um,
with Dad? You know he has better questions after you've asked yours. It happens every time.
Well, I mean, I asked him the first time, but then I ended up asking first, and then I asked him the second time out of
it's fine.
kindness.
It's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
All right, so let's see here. You really just kind of attacked defenseless Chad over there.
How is he defenseless? He has all of chat with him.
I wasn't allowed to talk.
Yeah.
I had a rebuttal, but I had to be quiet.
So we talk about the characters have been a big topic tonight. Can you explain how you think Chernobyl's characters stack up against House of the Dragon, and are there any basically, can you come up with anything to convince us that Chernobyl's characters can stand against or surpass what we see in House of the Dragon?
I don't think so because of how drastically different the approaches to the character development is. One's completely absent of interpersonal character arcs and character development, and the other one is 100% present in interpersonal development of character arcs. So, no, I cannot.
Dead.
I think we're looking at the wrong category.
I know we keep looking at characters. Like, come on, guys.
I mean, that's
I
just
wanna-
what keeps coming up.
I want to hear more about the aesthetics. Like, can we do that?
Yeah.
Because, like, I like a great character, but I also like a great story. But a show that really grabs me is one that looks awesome. Like, I'll
Yeah.
get to know these characters and love them or hate them or whatever. But what's going to draw me at first is the way it looks. House of the Dragon looks freaking awesome. Chernobyl looks like a nightmare. Like, but they both bring something amazing, like visual wise. So I want to hear that argument.
Yeah.
I think this could constitute for a second rebuttal round. I'd like to give each. I mean, hey, I guess I make the rules here, so we're just gonna do this. I'm gonna give you guys each 2 minutes to hype up
Wait
the
a minute.
aesthetics.
I basically said that.
I know, but I'm gonna give.
I
I'm
made
gonna
credit for it.
I'm gonna officially give
Wow.
both of them, not just Nick. We're gonna give Chad 2 minutes too, but we're gonna start with Nick. 2 minutes starts right now with hyping up the aesthetics of Chernobyl. Go.
Yeah. So the great thing about Chernobyl is that it's a drippy 5 episodes that sticks to a very concise, clean, and consistent aesthetic from beginning to end, right? It grabs you immediately. And it kind of like gently just like sets you off about the rest of your life after, a brief 5 episodes. And it's like, hey, everything's calmed down. It is kind of like it's a little lighter of a show on that last like closing episode, but you don't feel great about it, right? It's you just watch something horrible. Whereas House of the Dragon, I mean, absolutely fantastic and big marks for not just being Game of Thrones. But we discussed it many times during the companion series, just like they did have like slight misses, but they were really good at refining that over time. So it's really kind of, and like Joe said in chat, like Chernobyl has it easy because they had like a 5 concise episodes to like clean it up, make sure it's perfect from beginning to end, no missteps. Whereas House of Dragon, it's got to prepare for a long life ahead of it. And they do some on the fly testing. We even saw that in Game of Thrones where they had to fix the long night episode completely because it was just black. You missed
Yeah.
70% of the episode. So
30 seconds.
that one's tough between these two because how Chernobyl does have it easy in that respect for what they set out to do. They're like, let's make it perfect. House of the Dragon has time to make it perfect.
All right. Chad, 2 minutes. Starts now.
Yeah, so I do want to touch on Chernobyl a little bit. I think the aesthetics of Chernobyl are really good in that first episode primarily. I think they do a freaking phenomenal job just making that entire sequence
ashy.
horrifying. Everything in it is absolutely horrifying. But really, House of the Dragon, even though we've been talking a lot about the characters, it's really about the aesthetics. The show looks amazing. We're building a fictional world that looks really, really good. And we have to also remember that there's a lot of dragons in this as well. And even though there are hits and misses here, I think like I said, Damon's dragon's just not vibing with me the way that he flies. The other ones are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, especially Vagar, the big one. A lot of the kind of haunting imagery that we get with the aesthetics, I think, playing really well, especially that final episode during the storm. I can't remember. Storm's Wind.
Storm's End.
Storm's End. Storm's Wind is World of Warcraft, right?
Surprised you know that.
Storm's End looks phenomenal, dude. And we never saw that in the original series. But just that whole sequence where you see Vagar off in the distance and the lightning and the rain behind him, and then the whole chase sequence is absolutely horrifying. So the aesthetics stand very, very tall on this show. And you can definitely tell, like Nick said, that they're figuring it out as they go, which I'm fine with. That's what a first season of a show really should be. If you look at any show in history, the first season is them figuring it out, and then it usually gets better after that. So I can't wait to see what they do season 2. The dragons, I think, could become characters on their own, and we'll see. But yeah, the aesthetics here are just they're unmatched, I think, really with anything, even the original series. So ask your questions.
Perfect. You had 5 seconds to spare. Look at you. Great use of time. Do you have any questions after that, Dan?
I have a few.
Ooh, Dad's turning up.
So, Nick, it's crucial for more so in your case, in Chernobyl's case, that
I know what you're saying.
they have a more
I get it.
polished show, right? Do you feel like it's more polished and defined than House of the Dragon in its first season?
Chernobyl. More polished and defined or refined? Which was it?
Defined.
Defined. That's a tough one. Good question. Yeah, because Chernobyl is definitely well defined, though narrowly defined, because they don't have to really span too many environments, right? And also it's not like fantasy. So in that respect, House of the Dragon had like a bigger task to define, right? And curate its aesthetic, right? Specifically one that stands out from Game of Thrones, which is just like a mile high accomplishment. So in that regard, just like Joe said in chat, like Chernobyl has it easy because they're so like they only had this much to accomplish, whereas like House of the Dragon has to, one, not be Game of Thrones, but also be Game of Thrones, and look good all at the same time.
Cool.
Civ says, what was that? Great use of time? That's right. Chad did have a great use of time. But if you want to have a great use of time, you guys should tune into BioCiv streams. Look at that plug. That was
sick.
Man, that was
Yeah, that
natural.
was-
Just
He
right
nailed that
off,
with that.
Well done.
right off the tongue there. Yeah, go check out BioCiv. He streams video games, and it's fun. And his name's Yusuf, so you'll have a great use of time. You said you had multiple questions.
You can
good.
circle back. I almost spit out my drink.
So yeah, in that 2-minute bonus round, that
Usually
that Jeff thought
the
of.
hosts have to deal with the debaters, but I feel like it's the other way around. Like we have to deal with like the hosts here, and they're
Yeah, you
Right.
guys always just have to deal with me. It's just
Chad and I are like really well behaved down here, and
Yeah.
then you two are just like all over the place.
in that bonus 2-minute round. Nick, sadly, I didn't.
That was your
I didn't-
idea, right?
I didn't. Yeah, it's totally my idea. I didn't actually hear much talk about the visuals. And I'm hearing a lot of it almost sounds like excuses for the shortness of Chernobyl compared to the full length of House of the Dragon. But yeah, I just want to give you one more chance. Like, what about the visuals of Chernobyl like really take it over the top and make it land and make the story and the lack of characters, I guess, like really hit home with the viewer?
Yeah. So visuals, definitely the way they do frame things through the different characters' lenses, right? And they're able to like bring it down to like the people point of view, which not telling character stories, they're telling the event stories through their eyes. So they make it seem one super realistic, especially like that first episode, right?
Mhm.
But also equally haunting and very engaging because it's even in that dark episode, it's kind of like The Long Night. It's like it's super dark, but somehow there's all this stuff that's going on that is really eye catching, and it looks good, really good. Now, does that wane as it goes on because they do have a little less dramatic things to show? Yes, but the way that they're able to kind of like hook you in to this visual aesthetic that's dark, scary. Like it shouldn't make sense that it's real life because you're like, well, when is real life like this? And it kind of educates you that the real world can be like literal horror. So I think a lot of it is the way they're able to somehow tell a real story, but put this huge horror vibe over it with just, I don't know if it's just a filter, if it's just like a gray filter, but like the detail and even like the ash and the fire. And then I think episode 3, when people were like starting to melt a little bit, like that's your favorite scene, Mike. I know that. Just like the detail into all that. And it's just, I guess you can like hook sound into that too, because the sound plays into the whole aesthetic. While that's not visual, it really helps you put you into it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. And then Chad, for you, we talked about the early season mishaps and how they were improved upon. Can you just elaborate a little bit on how they were improved upon, and then if you had to pick like one of the most like visually stunning things, we'll just, to make it a little difficult, we'll just take out the like dragon chase thunderstorm scene. Aside from that, like what visually like really made you go, holy crap, that was amazing?
So, yeah, what was your first question?
How
Ask me
they
2 questions.
recovered, how they recovered from
recovered.
the
Okay,
early
so,
season
yeah.
mishaps, and then
So I think
your favorite.
the way that they recovered was by taking that, and I forget the name of it every time, the 3D soundstage thing, and instead of using it to show something as you would be seeing it with your eyes, they take a more cinematic approach to it and make it more cinematic with fog and thunderstorms and that stuff. So I think that hides the shortcomings of that way of doing the world a little bit better in the second half of the season, where you're seeing a lot more thunderstorms and fog and haunting imagery around those 3D soundstage scenes. And then what was the second question?
Like your favorite visual scene, aside from like the thunderstorm dragon thing.
Yeah. So my favorite visual scene probably is anything that happens on that Dragonstone Bridge. I think they do a really good job of making that look super haunting with the clouds and the way the dragon was flying through the clouds, and you could just see the clouds like puffing up as Rhaenyra was coming. I think it's anything that happened on that bridge was really cool. And I don't even know if it's actually a bridge. It might be the 3D soundstage. I'm not sure entirely, but it looks awesome. So
Yeah. Thank you.
and then also I think the battle of the Stepstones is really aesthetically pleasing as well. Just the way that they use the sort of darker world with the dragon fire, I think was really, really cool looking. And it
Was it like
just
morning?
yeah, it's like early morning or maybe late evening, and just the way that it was, I don't know, the darkness of the area and the dragon fire was just really cool looking.
Was that the crab dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Crab
that
feeder.
was-
Yeah.
They were like fighting him like many days, like nonstop. That's what that was. So it was like day and night, and then they're just all being exhausted, and that's when Damien just like goats it across the stand
And
the
that
beach.
That is actually super aesthetically pleasing as well. His like slow-mo one shot through the beach there was really, really cool. So it'd be hard for me to tie down one that was really the standout outside of the thunderstorm, which you didn't allow me to pick. That would probably be it.
Yeah.
The
That one
the
was
Stepstones
pretty good.
might be, I don't know, that's a really good one.
Yeah, definitely.
Dad, do you have any further questions before we move on?
Do you feel like, Chad, during the close-up dragon flights, it looks like they're riding mechanical bulls?
Yeah, no, not really.
Okay.
I think that I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the dragon riding in the show because they have like saddles and shit. So that can maybe make it seem a little odd because we're not used to seeing someone on a fictional dragon having a saddle. So
Right.
they're a little more decked out. So it could look like they're riding a mechanical bull. I see where you're coming from, but no, I think they did a good job. The only thing that I thought they didn't do a good job of with the dragon riding stuff is the audio, like the talking while they're on Dragonback, especially Corliss's son, I think it is, during the Stepstones where he's talking and you can't really even hear anything he's saying at all. You have to turn the subtitles on to even tell that he's talking. But yeah, I think they did a good job.
All right.
All right. I do have another question
Sure.
for Chad. Do you feel like House of the Dragon did a better job at capturing their world and all the events that happened? Did they do it better compared to Chernobyl?
Did they do it better? Yeah, I mean, I think Chernobyl does a really good job of capturing the event, right? And that's what the show is about. It does a great job, especially like I said, that first episode. I frequently watch that first episode just randomly. Like if I don't have anything to watch, I'm watching the first episode of Chernobyl. It's phenomenal. But after that, it's
pick me up. It's like
just need a nice little
The
I feel like
firefighter
my
thing,
life's
maybe.
terrible. I go watching people melt, and I'm like, it's not so bad, I guess.
Well, that's before the melting.
Yeah.
They melt after that.
But I think House of the Dragon does a really good job of capturing a peacetime version of this world, which we did not see really at all prior to it. So I think it does a good job of capturing that moment in time where there's tournaments and there's, the castles like bustling and everything. And then I think it does a really good job of capturing how different it feels after that when the high towers take over the Red Keep. It's like a dungeon. It's dark. There's people hanging from the ceilings. It's, everybody else is tied up in the dungeons below. It's very dark and dreary feeling. So yeah, I think it does a really good job of capturing both of those elements. Now it's kind of hard for me to talk on because I do know the event of Chernobyl, but I don't know the event of the book Fire and Blood. So I don't know per se if I can say that it captured the book because I don't really know what was going on in the book. So,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else, Jeff? Are you good?
Can Nick answer that same question? Or did he already, basically?
Can you repeat the question?
So, do you feel like Chernobyl did a better job at capturing their world and all the events that happened?
My answer is the same as Chad's. In terms of what they set out to do and the scope of it, they very well defined this moment in actual history. For the coolest thing about it for me was that it is an event that I knew of. Everyone basically knows of. It's all present in our cultural minds. But we didn't. I don't think many people like grasped like the full extent of it. Even putting it into like relatable terms, whether you're a firefighter or a first responder, or even when they're treating the people in the hospitals, relating to like, hey, like people actually still do this kind of stuff today, but like in this it happened back then in this horrible situation that really happened. So kind of putting like realistic frame of reference around this and the people that it impacted, I think that's like one of the biggest things it did, because that's what makes it interesting. You're like, holy crap, the whole time you're just like, one, I know this stuff kind of happens generally, but it's crazy that it happened under this circumstance in this time period, with these very horrible effects, right? Not just short term, but like, Chernobyl's still radioactive and still just sits there. I think people can technically go there today. Is that what the latest is on that? Or is that farce?
I'm not sure on that. I was thinking about that the other day because I watched a couple episodes
You
of
want to
Chernobyl.
go?
I mean, I probably
Boys field trip.
would. Yeah, I probably would. Just because it'd be a cool little piece of history to walk into, but I don't know how safe it is per se. But I came across like a guy fishing in the river right outside of there, so I don't know if it's entirely closed off. Maybe the actual Chernobyl is closed off. I'm not sure about the town, whatever the town's called.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, House of the Dragon, like Chad said, they were able to capture a very familiar world that, everyone that showed up to watch it already knew plenty about, not to mention when there's entire books that kind of back it up. But they even showed us things that did not exist from Game of Thrones that we had not seen, right? Being Storm's End, the Eyrie. Like, we never saw the Eyrie, but everyone talked the crap about, is it the Eyrie, or is that
I think we saw the Eyrie in
we saw
Game
the
of
Eyrie
Thrones.
where Damien killed his wife.
Is that the Eyrie? That might be
the Reach.
Eyrie.
The Reach.
The Reach, yeah, the
Yep.
Reach. That's it.
Yeah, so it was just cool that they were able to show us like brand new places somehow when there's already a show that was 8 seasons that hadn't. And the whole peacetime thing, because that was one of the biggest things that we looked forward to, was like, let's see this obviously very like developed, deep, intrinsic world, but not when it's just like completely getting its shit kicked in.
Yeah.
Every episode, every season. So very good.
I also want to point out that Storm's End looked as cool as it sounds. It just sounded like a cool place. I wanted to go there so badly in the original series, and it panned out very well in the House of the Dragon.
Yeah, and what you had made a point about Storm's End, about how it makes sense, like how it gives more context to Game of Thrones later. So now when they always talk about Stannis defending Storm's End for like that ridiculous amount of times, he was so pissy about that all through Game of Thrones. You're like, oh, that makes sense.
Now I
can
why.
see why he just like held up there, because that would be impossible to take.
Right. Yep.
Awesome. Anything else before we move on? All right. So Joe says, I was going to save this for after the closing arguments, and this be my response, but at no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Says the Roblox player.
Oh, and then we got this square, which is very, very helpful. Chad never returns. Mutants get him. I think this is on your field trip to Chernobyl. And then Joe said, I believe the town still has 200 residents.
I read that at first, like off in the side there as resilience, and I was like, that could be a stat.
He can never turn off the dungeon master.
Yeah, I thought it was a joke about the town. I was like, 200 resilience. That makes sense. Unknown residents. I hope it has some resilience.
All right, so
Rough spot.
we are through 3 rounds. We had a bonus round that was totally my idea. And we are left with the final 1-minute round closing arguments. Now, I do want to say we're not going to ask any more questions after you give your closing argument, because then it wouldn't really be a closing argument if we were then like reopening the argument. So, last chance. I have no further questions. Dad, do you have any further questions before we let them state their final cases and then we deliberate on the winner?
No.
Winter.
The winter.
Yes. All right. Perfect. So, Chad, your final 1 minute closing argument begins whenever you're ready. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Then it starts now.
So, House of the Dragon, it's just the simple fact that House of the Dragon stands out in every one of our categories. It has the story that it's building, right? A twisted path of palace intrigue. It's got the characters with an incredible amount of depth in a single season of a series. It's got the aesthetics, which are phenomenal through and through. I think we touched on that quite a bit. It's got the world building, and I kind of call it world debuilding because they're changing it and making it look totally different, which I really appreciate about the show. And that kind of goes to the aesthetic side of it too. I think it just feels so different but familiar at the same time. It's got the cultural impact. It's bringing people in. It's got the numbers on the viewership. It's got people excited for a second season, which probably won't be out until 2025 or something ridiculous. And then I also need to touch on the music a little bit because I think the music is phenomenal in the series through and through, from the opening, intro song, which is
And your time is up.
great. The music's great.
Keith.
It's always funny because that 5 minutes seems like it takes an hour, and then that 1 minute, it's like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes fast.
Even that 2-minute mark, like we're at the 2-minute, like that goes faster than the
Right.
first 3 minutes.
It's so funny when we get to, like, whenever I give that 2-minute or 1 minute warning, or like when I was given it, like everyone's voice, you could tell they're talking faster. They're like, all right. Nick, are you ready?
Yeah.
Final minute begins now.
Yeah, I'll just go really slow because I don't have a lot to say because it's only a 5-episode series, and definitely a not a hard show to kind of like argue for, but it definitely presents its challenges in the face of so many other great shows in this tournament. But definitely every category, it scores very well in, right? Does that mean it necessarily scores better than House of the Dragon? You could go on all day about that kind of stuff. They're 2 very awesome shows. So I'll always end this argument with go watch Chernobyl, and then in the same app, when you finish it, go watch House of the Dragon. Done.
All right, 5 seconds to spare. Okay, perfect.
HBO wins.
Few comments here. That Roblox comment cut deep, man.
I mean, calling everyone in the room dumber is pretty harsh too.
Yeah.
Nick, tell Chad he has herpes. Break his focus. He also says House of the Dragon touches on little boys, 0 votes.
Does it though?
And then Joe says the music from Chernobyl. Yeah.
It's kind of bad I had to think about. I'm like, does House of the Dragon? It does a lot of questionable things.
Good comments, guys. Those definitely helped persuade me in my vote. With that being said, it is time to choose a winner. So I guess I'll talk through. To be honest, right now, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. So hopefully by the end of my, you do? Okay. So I'll let you take the stage. You can please please feel free to elaborate on how you came to your decision, Dad, and then give your decision, and then I will go after you, and hopefully we will not have a tie.
Okay, so you guys, very compelling arguments. Like, I was coming into this like with the mindset of, okay, so pretend I haven't seen these shows, I know nothing about them. How are you going to convince me to get into these shows? I want to watch both of them. I watched some of both. So Nick, I kind of feel like you were defending Chernobyl, but I also feel like you were kind of defending House of the Dragon at some points. Because it is tough to, argue against a show you like.
Well, I'm not gonna lie for the sake of making myself right. So I have to give House of the Dragon. whatever
That's
the
bad
approval is.
entertainment, Nick. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, you give credit where credit's due. I mean,
For sure.
both shows have done exceptionally well in a lot of the categories. However, I feel like one show really stepped up in every category.
If you could pull off a Jordan right now, that would be awesome. The like triple like dodge,
Yeah.
the triple juke, and then like this is my pick.
Yeah. Actually, we're just
And
gonna
then-
pick Severance. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, who doesn't love a good face melting? I mean, a good horror. I mean, I love
Describing both
horror.
shows still.
Yeah, exactly. Who doesn't love Jared Harris? He's
Right.
in every show. No, I'm just kidding.
I wish he was in House of the Dragon.
I know that'd be so epic.
Then we could just have two pictures of Jared Harris.
Yeah.
I think that's the next March Madness is Jared
All
Harris.
Jared Harris.
Oh, Jared.
Not a bad idea. At least a power ranking.
Power ranking for yeah, was what I was gonna say.
Sorry, go on, Dad. I keep.
Oh,
I keep
you're
interrupting.
fine. You're fine.
Buying you time.
I mean, I have my winner. My pick. I just trying to deceive you all, but it's not working.
It's kind of working.
Oh yeah.
I think a little
So-
bit. Yeah, I see where you're going with it.
I got to give it to House of the Dragon.
Fair. So yeah, for me, it is a hard decision to make because, like Dad said, they're both. Next March Madness is Sean Bean deaths. Dang, you guys are
That was-
brutal in the comments.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. Was Sean Bean in House of the Dragon? And did he die?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
And does my Nuzlocke Sean Bean death make that March Madness? Because I think it should.
It does.
If we could watch it, that would be. Yeah, we can watch that. Right? That was a stream.
it's
Nuzlocke?
on Showboys
Okay,
Gaming,
we
by
could
the way.
include it. It's technically a Sean Bean death.
His name was Sean Bean, and I was equally as sad when that Sean Bean died as I was when old Ned got the sword to the neck. But yeah, both these shows are fantastic shows, so it's hard to pick. I will say the entire run of Chernobyl in this bracket has been crazy and not really one that I
Incredible.
expected. And having watched it, during the tournament here, I was really surprised at how awesome of a show this was. Obviously, I heard a ton about it from people who have watched it, and they all speak highly of it. And yeah, I would, even with coming into the show with that preconception of it, I was still kind of blown away. And then House of the Dragon, on the other hand, is just coming off of the massive success of Game of Thrones, and kind of counter to Chad's point, I think high fantasy is just a massive pop culture thing now. Like it's just maybe back in the 20, 30 years ago, maybe it was not as widely accepted, but I think from the success of shows like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it's just nerds rule now, so that stuff is kind of in the forefront. But it picked up right where Game of Thrones like left off power wise. Like it was a fantastic story. Like Chad said, the characters were amazing, and like all of their stories and how they kind of intertwined with each other. And I love the point of like the story being driven by the characters, other opposite of the character, this story driving the characters, other than the characters driving the story. Sorry, got lost there. And that's something that you can really see play out in House of the Dragon. You can kind of see where the story is going based off of the character motivations, which I thought was a really great point you made. In terms of what was presented tonight, I feel like also like Dad, that I know who Nick wants to win because he made quite a few points for Chad and House of the Dragon. So with all that said, I think it's hard to not vote for House of the Dragon. So House of the Dragon does get my vote. And I got to make sure I click the right graphic here because silly me labeled them wrong in StreamYard. So that could have got used. But we have crowned our first Showboys March Madness champion.
It says Chernobyl.
It says
Oh my
Chernobyl.
gosh. Dang it. That's what happens when you make graphics like 30 seconds before you go live.
You got everything else right. Just the name of the show.
I know.
Arguably the most
Dang it.
important aspect.
Well,
of it.
here,
You're lucky it was on the same streaming service.
it reflects my heart in this tough decision here where if I could, I would pick both. But despite what the graphic says, this is actually House of the Dragons taking the first ever Showboys March Madness tournament. And I think well-deserved. I think early on in the debate, honestly, I was leaning towards Chernobyl. Nick, you were making a lot of great points, but I think what took me over the top was hearing the aesthetic arguments, because that's not something that we've touched on really on either show yet. So thank you, Dad, for bringing that up and bringing the amazing idea of a bonus round to my brain. Couldn't have done that. No, I'm just kidding. But no, thank you for bringing that up, because that sparked some good conversation there about both shows. And Chad's points, the aesthetics of House of the Dragon is something that somehow I subconsciously like suppressed for some reason and forgot how cool some of the visuals were of that show. And I think that's kind of a testament to how amazing the characters are, because that's
I was just gonna say
everyone's like primary focus of that show is the characters, and then you forget like, oh yeah, they have like super awesome dragon scenes, and like
right.
Viserys like literally could have made a cameo in Chernobyl and would have fit right in there towards the end.
Even like when they sneak out into the streets at night, or even like Damien when he's doing all his night crawling.
Yeah.
Like completely different show all of a sudden. Like somehow it's like I don't know, like a New Orleans at night.
Yeah, it does have that vibe. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Congratulations, Chad. Good effort, Nick. You guys both did a great job debating for roughly an hour. So kudos to you guys. Thank you, Dad, for participating and coming on screen with us and being another host on the show. It
won't happen again.
So if you could somehow like magically transfer that trophy just like right
down
into Chad's screen, that'd be
drop
amazing.
it right to you.
Oh wait.
Not on his head.
There we go. Oh, didn't work.
It didn't work. It's not here though.
I feel better without that orb being right here. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like more spacious down here.
Dude, I feel like the screen just looks incomplete without an overlay on it now
It
that we've
kinda
gone
does,
5
yeah.
episodes. I feel
but I
like
kinda dig
feel
it.
naked.
I'm on Nick's side. Like I feel
It's
like
like-
there's a lot of room down here now.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to worry
Cramped.
about getting behind that overlay.
So, not that it matters, but according to YouTube, let's refresh real quick just to see if we have the poll number, the most up to date. Oh wow, it was a tie, 50-50 for House of the Dragon and Chernobyl. So good thing we didn't go to a tiebreaker because
Yikes.
that would have sucked.
Wow.
But thank you guys.
No, me and Chad would
listener.
have voted and we would have broke the tie.
Uh,
Chad would have voted for House of the Dragon.
that's true. That's true.
You can tell that you were slightly sore from beating Arcane last week. You were like, not letting it happen this week. But I can't overplay my hand.
Well, the other hard part was like I put everything into last week, and then it's just like
Right.
I can't. There's
Yeah.
only so much you could talk about a 5-episode series.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. He did a good job though with
Yeah.
what you had to fight on behalf of. But yeah, I wanted to say thanks to all the listeners, our audience out there, people in Discord, anyone who jumped on any of the polls or jumped on our community tab on YouTube and voted in those polls. We got a crap ton of votes in the polls that like exceeded my expectations and blew them out of the water. So thank you guys for participating in those. All the conversation that happened in the Discord channel for March Madness, the brackets that were filled out, it was super fun and a really cool way to like engage with you guys. So thank you for participating and coming along the journey with us. But I thought maybe it would be fun here at the end before we close. I didn't tell any of you about this, which probably would have been smart. But if you had to pick like a show or 2 or 3 from your bracket, maybe that you think are probably underappreciated or slept on, or maybe like not viewed as widely as they should be. Do you have any shows from your bracket or from your division of the bracket that you would recommend people go watch as soon as they possibly can? I see you shaking your head, Dad. What do you got?
Severance.
Yes, of course.
That's
I know
it.
that was coming.
Yeah, I think that's I can't say a resounding recommendation because only you and I have seen it, but yes, that would be my pick. If there's one show that has been massively slept on that hasn't been viewed by as many people as it should be, it is in fact Severance. You should definitely watch that show. Nick, do you have any from your division that people should check out?
The Crown.
The Crown.
Crown.
Don't sleep
Good
on the
choice.
Crown.
Good choice. Good choice. Chad, I see you like
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
rapidly flipping through
I
notebook
was trying
pages.
I was hoping that I would quickly find what shows were in my division instead of trying to figure it out in Discord. But come
Fleabag.
back to me.
Yeah, Fleabag, definitely.
Nah, Mandalorian. You can pamp that out a bit, or
Yeah, not many people have seen that show, I
Daredevil.
don't think.
Daredevil, yeah, that probably would be my pick, honestly. Daredevil. But I mean, there's a lot of people that have seen that show. I wanted to be fancy and pick something that nobody's ever seen.
I would say if
I'm gonna
looking
go. I'm gonna
Go
go
ahead,
with Queen's Gambit, 100%.
Ooh,
Nice.
that's a good
I
one.
think that is a phenomenal show. I don't remember how far it made it into the tournament. I think it
Oh, I
got
have the
knocked off
bracket
by
right here, so
it
let me tell
made
you.
it.
Second round.
It failed against Mando in the
Mando
third
knocked
round.
it off. Yeah.
Third round.
Hey, it made it to the Sweet 16. It's not
Daredevil
bad.
and Queen's Gambit got knocked out respectively by House of the Dragon and Mandalorian. So two good shows, but like, definitely not the same caliber as the
Right.
ones it went against. So really they just kind of fell out due to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think Queen's Gambit. Looking at all of them, I think it's the easy pick for sure.
If I had to pick one from your bracket, I would recommend Outer Range. That's a fun one season as of now on Prime. Fun. How did I describe it? Like sci-fi Yellowstone. So,
Yeah, is it Well, that might be spoilers. Is it a out of this world sci-fi story?
It's
You catching what I'm throwing over there?
it's definitely
You getting
an
bit by an
outer
alien over
range
there?
sci-fi story.
Outrage.
Yeah, it's out of something, that's for sure. No, it's interesting though. I would recommend that. I'm looking at Dad's Division now. Obviously, Severance would be my pick, hands down.
No.
Letterkenny, I feel like that's like a very niche show. Like, if you haven't seen Letterkenny, I feel like you need to watch that. And then I almost want to say Against Better Judgment, but like reflecting back on the first season, there's 2 seasons out now. Reservation Dogs is kind of an interesting watch on Hulu if you have Hulu. Coming of age comedy, like it's all right. You might find it fun. Let's look at Nick's division over here. Crown's a good pick. I mean, The Expanse, obviously.
Dude, I had all the good shows.
Obviously, if you've never seen The Expanse.
Man, High Castle, Haunted Hill House.
Yeah. I would like to watch Man in the High Castle.
It's good.
Looking over in mine, obviously I would say Arcane, which fell short last week. So don't listen to my argument last week of why you should watch it, but you should just take my advice and watch it because it's great.
League is so cool.
Yeah. Wayne is another good one that you should check out. But I would say the show that probably has maybe Wayne is probably the least like recognized show for my bracket, but I cannot speak highly enough of Landscapers on HBO. 4 episodes. I think it might even be 3. Somewhere between 3 to 5. Like, you really, really should watch this show.
What are they, just like fucking cutting grass the whole time? Or?
Yeah, dude. It's an amazing documentary about the landscaping business. No, it's a story about a true crime event based on a true story, but it's done in a very theatrical, like artsy presentation. It's really, really cool.
It's super short too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say it's
like,
only?
Yeah. Let me just do a quick Google search just to verify. I think it's 4 episodes. It might only be 3 episodes.
I thought it was 3. That's what's sticking in my head, but you had to tell me the question you asked me like 5 times earlier, so don't trust my head for anything.
Where is it? Why can't I find how many?
Because you're just getting phone numbers for landscapers in your area.
Exactly. I can't find the episode count, but it's only 3 hours and 13 minutes of show. So yeah, take that as you can.
It is 4 episodes long.
There you go. Yeah. So check those out, write those down, go give those watches. Of course, we had many shows in the tournament that we've done companion series on. So
many shows. You
should definitely go listen to those. So most recently, House of the Dragon, The Chosen, The Bad Batch, The Mandalorian. We did an episode on Stranger Things. We did an episode on the Boys. We did an episode on Andor. Haunting of Hill House. Am I missing any, guys? I mean, there's quite a few we've actually covered. So go check those out for sure. Anything else you guys want to get off your chest before we wrap up and end the episode here?
Can't wait to get in some topical episodes, some Jenny episodes, and the next Throwback Thursday series.
Which is?
I don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
We've decided, yeah.
We had a few ideas.
We've pitched a few things, but nothing.
I think I'm up for having not seen it because I've so far seen everything twice. Yeah,
it's definitely need to find a show that Nick hasn't seen, and preferably one that Chad and I have both seen. But
and me.
It doesn't need to necessarily be that way. But yeah, so I guess we're done here tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Civ. Oh, by the way, I got to throw this up there. In regards to the dumb quote, he said it was a Billy Madison quote. You'll hear about it on the Adam Sandler movie ranking episode. Yes. All right, guys, you have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe so Nick can get rid of this switch out of his
Congratulations, Chad.
Good job.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
And agree with Discord, the real winner, HBO Max. We'll see you
Yes.
next week. Episode was so short, I didn't even have to go pee.
Wow.
And I wish I could have ended the episode on that too, but my mouse froze and I couldn't.